Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Howard. If you don't already know me, you can see my socials or my website down below. It's travelwithhoward.com. So today I know on Facebook a lot of people, well not a lot, but quite a few people do ask about what documents you need to live or work in Spain. And today's video is just going to be for EU citizens, unfortunately. So if you're not an EU passport holder, then unfortunately it's a little bit different for you and you might want to look at another video, or I can also recommend some people to provide advice for you if you're not an EU citizen and want to live in Spain. That's something I'm not able to help with myself, but I know people who can suggest different options for you. So do feel free to get in touch anyway. If you are lucky enough to have an EU, so not a Spanish, but another EU country, so France, Ireland, um, any of the other EU countries, or I think Switzerland and Norway as well, as they're not EU, but they are in the area. So if you are lucky to have, or you are eligible to obtain through either ancestry, marriage, residency, an EU passport, and want to live in Spain, then this is for you. So there's quite a few different forms, and annoyingly in Spain, regions and even different police stations or foreigners' offices can interpret the rules differently. So just to make it even more confusing, that's just how it is in Spain. Anyone who's like spent an extended period or lived in Spain will know that already, but if you don't, then um, that's something for you to consider. It's definitely something also to consider when you're thinking about where in Spain you're planning on living. Because say, for example, if you plan to live in a small town somewhere, then it's going to be a lot easier to get the right documents than, say, living in Madrid or Barcelona. So that's something to consider as well. The other thing to consider is when you go to the police station or foreigners office in Spain, or the tax office, they generally don't speak English, and none of I think there is an English translation for some of the forms, but any of the official forms will be in Spanish only. So if you don't speak Spanish, you have a few options. Option one is to use an agency or solicitors. There's quite a few out there that will do the paperwork for you. Obviously, this will entail a fee, but some people do feel that paying a few €100 just to get the paperwork sorted, if you don't speak the language, especially, and even if you do speak the language, it's still quite tough sometimes. So a lot of people do feel like having agencies, people who know someone who help you get the right paperwork will definitely help. So that's one thing. The other thing is to, like I said, use translator services, either hire someone, or there's translation guides or forms online as well for most of the foreigners forms. So you can use that as a guide, but when you fill in the actual form, it will have to be only in Spanish. And yeah, the people at the offices generally don't speak English. You might be lucky, and if you're in a tourist area, for example, to meet someone who does, but in general, they don't, even in big cities. So um, the option there, if you don't speak the language, is learn some phrases that you'll need, learn some phrases that you'll expect to hear, and go prepared with all the paperwork already. So hopefully you just need to give it to them, and then they hopefully give you your residency. Or sometimes you have to wait if it's in a big city. So the first most important thing is probably the n.i.e. number. You need it to do a lot of things in Spain. So Spanish people use their ID card number, the n.i.e., for day-to-day life. So some examples of things that you need it for, although not always, is opening a bank, um, getting utilities or internet if you have a house. And there's really many, many things. You can use it for travel as well. And it's just a number that identifies you to the government. So Sometimes to get a phone or mobile phone, you also need to have this number. It's often asked for in a lot of forms when you're doing any sort of official paperwork to get a job, and sometimes to be on the padron, which I'll talk about later. So I'd say, and if you do ever apply for permanent residency or citizenship, then you'll definitely need it. So I would say that's probably the most important document for any foreigner to have. It doesn't prove your residency in Spain, but it is a very useful number to have. Or also buying a house, also. Not always for renting, but definitely for buying. And if you're an EU citizen, you have two options, and it will, again, like I said, depend where you live and how you're doing it to get this number. If you're buying a property, your solicitor will normally do it for you. So that's one less thing to worry about, right? If you have a job offer in Spain, your employer may also either do it for you or help you to get it, like tell you how and what documents you need. But if you're not in any of those situations, then you will have two options. The first one is to fill out form EX15, and that will give you the n.i.e. number. But it will just give you the number, it won't prove your residency right in Spain. The other option is if you do have the right paperwork to fill in EX18, and this will give you what's known as the green n.i.e. Sometimes it's called residencia. Annoyingly, again, there's different words that people use for it, but it's all the same thing. For that document, you will need a bit more paperwork as well. So as well as the form, you also need photocopies of everything that I say. So I don't know why Spain just loves photocopies. Luckily, if you're an EU citizen, you just need a photocopy of the biometric details on the passport. I think maybe the outside cover or the information bit, that's all. But you do also need a reason for applying. So if you have a job offer, your job contract is normally acceptable. So it's fairly simple. If you're, say, a pensioner living on a fixed income, pension, dividends, investments, then you need bank statements and proof to support yourself. You also need health insurance or the health card if you have it. I think that's pretty much it, as well as photocopies of all of those things and some sort of proof of address as well. So once you have all of those things and EX18 filled in but not signed and photocopied, as you sign it when you're there, as well as the passport and photocopy, you take all of them along to your appointment, and then hopefully they either give you the residency there and then. Oh, there is also the bank fee. Any official paperwork in Spain has a fee, but it's normally pretty small. I think it's around €12. And you can pay it at any bank in Spain. Some ATMs even will let you pay it. You don't need to have an account with that bank. Literally anyone in Spain will do it for you. It's a form, I think it's 790, a Modelo 790. You can nowadays, I think you can also do it online. When I did it, there wasn't the option of online, but so yeah, either do it online, go to the bank, they'll give you proof you paid the fee. You just take that proof along to the appointment. I believe all appointments now need you to have paid in advance. So that's just one extra thing to do in advance. The good news is that that way they can give you the certificate straight away. They don't need to wait for you to go to the bank, then pay it. So the advantage of also doing it that way is you get your n.i.e. number. It will be written on the green. It used to be an A4 paper, but I think it's now a lot smaller. Your n.i.e. will be written on that. So it's like getting two documents in one. That's a slightly better way if you have all the paperwork ready. If you don't, or you live someplace where they need you to do the padron first, you might need to get the n.i.e. first, and then get your other paperwork in order, then go to the residence appointment. I know it's a lot of appointments, even just for an EU citizen, but that's the way it is in Spain. So the next one is, like I mentioned before, the padron. The padron is like the electoral roll in Britain. It shows all the people that are eligible to vote. So if you're EU, you can vote in local elections in Spain. it's allowed as long as you're on the padron. It's also used as proof of residence, and the local town halls get money from Madrid based on how many people are on the padron. So that's another reason you're encouraged to apply. If it is also another form of residence that you've been living in Spain and not just off the radar, so it's definitely is an important document to have. You'll also need it for some other things, such as if you have children, enrolling them in school, maybe to access some other public services as well. So I'd recommend that you do get put on the padron fairly soon after you arrive in Spain if you're going to live there permanently. People who just have holiday homes, not permanent residents, don't plan on living in Spain like for more than 3 or 6 months, I think it is, you definitely then you don't need to apply for it. And actually you shouldn't, because it's only for permanent residents or people who spend the majority of the year in Spain, not for anyone else. Sometimes you do need the n.i.e. for the padron, sometimes you don't. There's different information online, and it seems to just depend where you live. Some people say you can just use the passport number for that. Again, if you're ever asked on a form for an n.i.e. number, you might wonder why on the form to apply for an n.i.e. it asks you for an n.i.e. And that's because if you do ever lose a document or need an updated one, change address, or you just need to have a date. Sometimes they ask for something in the last 3 months if you are using it as proof of residency. Then your n.i.e. stays with you your lifetime. So that's why some of the people applying and filling out these forms will already have an n.i.e. and they won't need or want a new one to be issued. Because if you have two, it might make problems for you. So if you ever had an n.i.e. before, a lot of people don't realize, but even if it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, it doesn't matter. It's your number. You should preferably memorize it. Don't know why it suddenly went dark. Yeah, preferably memorize this number. And if you ever do move back to Spain or get new documents, you should tell them the old number just to make sure, in case they're not able to find you on the system, that the documents are issued with that number again. Otherwise, it might be a problem. A lot of people have just found by surprise that they were on the system despite having left Spain like many years ago. But that's because the number stays with you for life. So the final thing, if you're going to be self-employed, yeah, that's the thing about the residence. If you're self-employed and just proof of work, regular income, bank statements will be sufficient to show that. So yeah, if you're self-employed or getting a job, you will need a social security number in Spain. I've read officially EU citizens can do this with just their passport or work without one, just using the passport for the first 3 months, I believe, is that's the time limit. So you can live in Spain for 3 months without any documents, just your passport, as long as it's valid and European Union. But it is better to have it, so you're making those contributions. So you'll need passport, proof of some sort of residency, and sometimes the n.i.e. number as well, and a job contract. If you're self-employed, you need form TA1 as well as that, and as usual, photocopies of everything. So, but that's generally a thing you do after you've got the n.i.e. number and everything like that. So it's not a thing you need to rush into straight away, I don't believe. Also, if you're employed, generally your employer will help you get that for your first job if you don't already have one. Some employers say they want you to have all the paperwork already, but officially they shouldn't say that if you're an EU citizen, because you do have the right to work in Spain anyway. But some say they prefer people who already have the paperwork just as it's already been done. So those are, I think I've covered. So yeah, I've covered the 4 documents that EU citizens should have, or 3 if you combine the n.i.e. and residency in one. I hope you found it useful and informative. Like I said, if you're not an EU citizen, it's a bit different for you. So you do need to take some research different visas and apply that way. But if you are also a family member to an EU citizen, you can also apply to live in Spain. I'm not sure if the family member needs to live with you. I think they do, but I'm not 100% sure. That's another option, and there's different forms. So when you see form EX something, that just means it's short for extranjeros, foreigners. So um, there's a range of these forms available, like EX15 is the n.i.e, 18 is residencia. And there's a few other ones depending on different circumstances that people have. So I think there's a different form if you're a family member of an EU citizen. And obviously different documents required. So I hope you found it useful. For more travel advice, you can see my other videos, see my website, travelwithhoward.com, or send me a message. Feel free if you have any questions as well, or write in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll be back soon with another video.